There's a repo down the street from me that is like listed for $435, but it's not selling. And I don't understand why, but I'm crying.
That at $435 is relatively comparable to your house.
Yes.
What did you pay for your house?
$738,000.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
I have like a plug-in earphones.
I think we're good.
I think if we have an issue, we'll do that. Otherwise,
Okay.
let's just go.
Okay, cool.
Do it.
All right. Well, welcome back to the show. We have a repeat guest, a friend of the show. Melanie Galea has joined us from Fort McMurray, but originally just a girl from Oshawa. That's what you are at heart. Melanie, when you first joined the show, I think you were maybe one of our first 10 episodes. And at the time, as we were like trying to find how this worked, Steve, that episode crushed. I think it was like one of our biggest episodes ever that early on. So welcome back.
Thank you for having me. That makes me blush. It makes me blush.
Well, we always appreciate a guest with a real podcast microphone as well. It makes our jobs so much easier. That's always the thing we're worried about. Melanie from Fort McMurray, what is going on in your world of real estate? We got lots to talk about today, but like what's up? What's going on?
So, I mean, I reached out because I thought something that people probably don't talk about a lot. Fort McMurray, we just went through another mini evacuation,
I know.
right? And so I think something that people don't think about because it's not on their radar, or they think about it when they're in the thick about it, and then they're not thinking about what they need to do. And so I created an evacuation checklist. And, you know, I went through this exercise myself. What would it cost you to replace your spice rack?
Steve probably has very fancy spices, so I'm going to say...
Like, I'm not talking about saffron. You know what I mean? Like, saffron, it could be like $200 itself. But like...
I don't cook in my house. I don't know.
Okay, I know. All right.
Salt,
all right.
and,
Well,
salt and pepper from Costco in the pink salt and pepper with the crusher thing on top. That's fixed.
Okay. This subject though is the spice rack. Okay. And so I literally priced out yesterday what it cost me. I've got 37 spices in my spice rack. I don't have a lot of spices, but I do. It would cost $270 to replace my spice rack.
You got the KFC recipe in your spice rack. The
Is that from Loblaws? I thought we were avoiding Loblaws right now. Is that from Save On Foods?
Oh my gosh.
What's the big grocery store in Fort McMurray? You guys have the big chains
I would
like
say
us?
Superstore is probably the biggest. But okay,
they're owned by Loblaws, right? That's all part of the same.
They are. Yeah, they are. But my point about this, boys, is like, what's your collection? Like, imagine having to replace every single piece of your electrical equipment to do your podcast, right?
Yeah.
To run your business, every piece of electrical equipment. And when is the last time that you took a picture of every single thing in your house? Like, I called my mom, like, during this like, we weren't personally evacuated, but one of the areas of town that was hit the hardest during the 2016 evacuation. So let me just remind people, 2016, there was the biggest national disaster in Canadian history where Fort McMurray was evacuated for 30 days and 88,000 people were evacuated from our city. We were gone for 30 days and 2,200 structures were lost in the city. And I would say not all of those have been built back. And we lost probably 10,000 people. I talked to somebody this morning that wants to list their place that left after the fire and just never came back.
And they've just held it that whole time.
Yeah, they've been renting their place. Yeah. So, and now they're ready to sell. So I'm going to sell it.
Where do they want to go?
They're gone, right? Like
Where did they go? Where did they go in 2016?
They went to the island. And so for those in Ontario, the island is Vancouver Island. Us in the West, when we talk about the island,
it's Jamaica. Jamaica for me.
I've been 17 years now in Alberta, so I'm starting to feel more Albertan than I am schwa girl, but the schwa's in the roots still.
The schwa never leaves you.
The schwa's never going to leave. Yeah.
So this must have been crazy going through what you went through in 2016 and everybody else in Fort McMurray. And then, this was just over a month ago now. You guys are told to evacuate again. So it was just like, oh my God, it's happened. Like when that was first happening, did you think like this is going to be as bad as last time? Like thankfully it looks like it wasn't.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't.
What was going on?
I may have cried.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky. I didn't lose my home. And the area of town that I live in wasn't impacted. So that's really good. There's two sections of town, and that's Abasan and Beacon Hill and Grayling Terrace that were ordered to evacuate. And they were only gone for a couple of days, which was good. This fire was a very different fire than the 2016 fire. And it's a muskeg underground fire. So it's actually probably going to take them a little bit longer. Like it could take months, if not a year, to put it out. So it's a very, very different type of fire. But definitely, it triggers people. Right. And so one of the things that they asked, and they actually held off people from the north. So there's only one way to get out of Fort McMurray right now. They're building another, so that there's two ways out. But right now there's still only one road out of the city, and that is to go south towards Edmonton. And so they held off people from the north, but people were triggered. Absolutely. Lots of people, kids with, post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. And I couldn't even imagine for children, how scary that would be.
Yeah.
Going to Edmonton, you mean? Yeah.
Oh, Steve.
like having a kid now to be like, hey, get in the car. We're leaving the house. That would be like, and with a dog and it'd be so scary.
Yeah. And you've got number 2 on the way, right? And so, and this, so here's what happened.
By the way, this is my announcement that I'm having a second kid. This show.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. We had to tell them at some point.
Oh, okay.
No, it's great.
I feel sorry for him too, Melanie. The only thing worse than, having 2 babies at home is being in Edmonton. So it's just it could be really tough. Just so you know, I took my girls to Edmonton a couple of years ago, and they feel the same way about Edmonton as I do. So soon, Tom's 2 little young ones will also be able to have that feeling.
How far is the drive from Fort McMurray to Edmonton?
It's about 4.5 hours.
Okay, so it's still that's not, that's a good trek. And that's the place you would go. There's nowhere closer that you would stop at.
There are, but when you have 20,000 people leaving, right? More space was needed. So, they learned a lot from the last fire. I think that the people that were in our emergency services department, very impressed with how they handled things. Mm-hmm. They worked in conjunct, and listen, there were still some hiccups, but they learned from every situation that happened. But now people in Fort McMurray are educating people in other cities about what to do in these situations. So
that's what's interesting so we're seeing this all over. They had issue in Newfoundland. They've had some issues in Quebec, right? So what is it? Because this is going to be now likely a serious concern for most rural communities. And I do consider, Fort Mac's going to be a rural community, no matter how big it gets. What are we learning right now? How is this being dealt with so many citizens that are living that life of not knowing if they got to leave overnight? Okay.
So the most important thing is you got to have a plan. Right? You got to have a plan. And I cannot stress enough the importance of taking pictures of every single thing in your house once a year. I had this conversation with my mom. I'm part of, I'm in the middle of editing a little video right now about the spice rack, right? You had to replace it, but use that. If I had to replace my golf clubs, if I had to replace, maybe you have a sports card, you know what I mean? If you have some kind of collection of something, right? What would it cost you to have to replace every single piece of that? And it dawned on me. I called my mom, and all mom did was take a picture of her TV. I'm like, Mom, your spice rack.
The spice rack might cost more than TVs nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, Mom's got a lot of stuff in the house, and I was like, Mom, what would it What would it cost?
So this is an insurance, like, you know, God forbid all this stuff disappears. You have proof of absolutely everything that was in your house,
Yes.
right? Okay.
So we saw some, and I'm gonna get real here, right?
Sure.
We saw some really crappy situations for some people and their insurance. You have to check your insurance once a year. And I know I said this, I think I talked about this a little bit on the first episode, but it hasn't changed. You have to check it once a year. Minimum, absolute minimum, $50,000 for your basement. You probably need more. Prices have gone up, inflation's gone up, costs are more. You probably need $75,000 to cover your basement being redone, especially depending on the size of your house. If we're talking about a 1,500 square foot 2-story, it still might not 50. You're probably looking 75,000 now. So, you know, making sure that you have the right insurance, making sure you have enough coverage for all of your stuff. I don't want to fight. Insurance will nickel and dime you for every single thing. That's their job, to keep as much money in their pockets as possible and not give you what you deserve, but you have to be able to prove it. So pictures of everything, video of everything. And that was one of the most important things. That's one of the things I did again, was I took pictures and video of every single thing in my house. Again.
Should renters do it as well for their contents?
If they have content, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You should be doing that once a year. No matter what kind of, whether you're owner or renter.
From what happened in 2016, do you pay much higher insurance because of where you live?
I'm sure we do. Yeah. Like, but I've shopped for insurance. Like I've had to shop for insurance. Don't get me started on that, because I was paid too much from a year before and I found someone else and I'm paying half of what someone wanted to charge me. So that pisses me off. It's my money. Thank you.
Well,
This episode is brought to you by Square One. By the way, one of our amazing sponsors of the channel, Square One, where I get my condo insurance for my landlord policy.
So
it's funny that you mentioned that, though, the like recording stuff. So one of the first memories way back, I want to say mid 80s, we got our first family like recorder. What do you call it? The
camera
video recorder with like the VHS in the side,
recorder.
Right? Yeah. The tape clipped in the side. Yeah. And I remember my stepdad, I had to help him, and he literally went into his tool shop and opened up every single one of his toolboxes, all the cupboards. He displayed everything, and he videotaped the whole thing so he could have that. Now, what I wonder is where that videotape went to, because if the house burned down, it probably back in those days wouldn't have been a very good plan. But he documented every single tool that he had in case of a fire or something or theft, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think just in this conversation, you know, Tom, you brought up your kids, right? And dealing with the stress of the kids and leaving, right? And what happens is that people get stressed out, right? People get stressed out. And when people are stressed, you lose your logical thinking.
Yeah.
And so making sure like that you have a checklist or that, and think about like, it's different when you know it's coming versus it, you know, you've got that few minutes in order to get something, but it's like, where is that most important stuff? You know, for me, when I evacuated, I didn't have to evacuate this last time here in Fort McMurray because I don't live in that area of town. But I was ready to go. I knew what I needed. I had the Christmas ornaments. I had the wine ready to go. I had the important stuff.
Yep.
If I needed it, right? If I needed to go. And so, you know, things like what is really important to you. You know, there's some heirlooms that you just can't replace, right? Pictures for sure is like, where are they? But having a plan for your pets, remembering medication, your pet's medications, obviously your kids' medication, and just making sure that, you have a plan. At least once a year, talk about it.
Do you have like at all times, there's like a bag somewhere in your house with all this stuff already pre-packed? No, it's just, okay, if this happens, I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm more calm in this situation because I prepared for it.
Yeah.
And what about if someone lives on my street in Toronto and we're like, okay, we're not really worried about maybe what you guys are worried about, but there's other things that could just happen unexpectedly that you should be potentially more prepared for.
Yeah, like you guys could have a flood. The city
Yeah.
could have a sewer backup, right? Any of those
Yeah.
things could happen. You could have a tornado, right? Like there's nothing to, Mother
Yeah.
Nature can be kind of weird. Don't think that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, one went through Barrie like a few years ago and like ripped
Yeah.
down all these crazy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a month ago, did people lose their homes this time around? Or
No.
did they? Okay. So,
No.
okay.
Yeah, no, there was no loss, which was great. Like I said, our city did an incredible job of holding things up. We got the help when we needed it to. That's
Right.
the other important piece, right? We have a different government in place right now. We've got, we got Danielle Smith, who is a little bit of the wild, wild west, but she's going to make sure that this. So the other thing is that we've got the oil companies, right? They were sending down trucks. They were sending down equipment to help put this out. They have to protect their asset. They've got billions and billions and billions of dollars up here. So they're also helping out to make sure that we got the assets that we needed.
I guess if you're cynical, you could say they're just helping out because they care about the oil, not the people and the houses, but
whatever
way you want to look at it, I guess.
Absolutely.
You need the people in the houses to get the oil out of the ground.
That's true.
Care about it, right? They're going to do a lot better job than the government is sending in the water bombers. Like a corporation that can actually make moves and get stuff done is probably going to do a better job.
Well, it was good that they worked together to do it, right? And that's the important point on that. They had a better plan, but like I said to you, it was a different fire this time.
So what's the general vibe like now that people are settled again? It's summertime, or
had so much rain. We have much rain. Like I feel like
but that's good. I would guess
it is.
Right?
Yeah, no, it is. It's needed. I'm over it though.
Have you been able to golf as much as you'd like to?
Yes, I'm getting to golf. It did snow here a couple of weeks ago, so
Really?
there's that. There's that. Yeah, it's just been a weird year of weather, but that's Alberta, right?
So amongst all this craziness, are we affordable housing now? Are we unaffordable housing now? What's going on in Fort Mac and as the overall?
Hey agents, a clean and easy to manage real estate website is a must. Go to realtyninja.com/Tom right now and start your site totally for free and pay nothing until you launch. And then when it is your time to go live, you will save 20% off of your entire first year just for signing up at realtyninja.com/Tom.
I would say that we are probably one of the most affordable communities in the country, right? So I still say, God, Steve, if you talk about Edmonton, I can't imagine what you'd say about Fort McMurray. Anyways,
I've never been, but my wife was born there, so got a sweet spot in my heart for Fort Mac. It can't be as bad as Edmonton. Yeah, it can't be as bad as Edmonton.
Goodness.
There's no chance.
So the thing about Fort McMurray is where your friends become your family. Everyone's from somewhere else.
Is that a tagline? Is that the city? Is that on the license plates?
It should be.
Yeah.
It should be. I tell AcDev all the time, they're using our tagline for sure. But it is where your friends become your family, and a great place for opportunity, right? Like if you want a great paying job and being able to afford to live, like I would say the average price of a house right now is about $500,000. Where at the height of the market, it was about $775,000.
And that's still 2012, if I remember correctly. Was it 2012?
Yeah,
was the height?
2012, 2014. Yeah,
okay.
In there. Yeah.
So now that we're seeing everyone complain, like they always have about my market and Steve's market, and like, okay, well, we're just going to move to Alberta. Like it's happening, right? So in my mind, this is how it works. And tell me if I'm wrong here. I'm from Toronto or I'm from Vancouver. I go, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm done I don't want to live in this colony anymore. I want a house. I want a better lifestyle. I want to pay less taxes, all the things. And I probably think first, like, I'd like to go to Calgary.
Yes.
Just generally, that's what happens, right? You look at Calgary, you go, oh, it's not as cheap as it used to be. It's still very competitive. There's a lot of people. And then you might go, okay, well, all right, what about Edmonton?
Yeah.
And then you kind of keep going. Where does Fort McMurray rank on that list? If it's not specifically a job, I'm going to Fort McMurray for a job, where are we on that list?
I would say you're moving to Fort McMurray for a job.
Okay, so that's why you're moving to Fort McMurray. No one's
Yeah.
coming just because they're working remote and they can get a great deal on a house. And
If they're smart, they would, or they could,
right.
right? So I mean, we do have an international airport. We don't have international flights right now, but we are equipped to be an international airport.
Mhm.
Lots of great things about this city. Lots of great things. So,
But you didn't go for a job because you could sell real estate anywhere.
No, I moved for love. I'm just in it with someone better.
So if you're born in Fort McMurray, you leave Fort McMurray, but if you're living there now because you went there for a job or fell in love with someone that lived there, is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, here's the thing. People come here for the 5-year plan. It's 15 years later and they're still here.
Sure.
Right? Because you cannot get jobs anywhere else in the country like you can here. Like if you got a skilled trade, this is the place for you.
But isn't it people then so they're getting a job and then moving there? Do they move there and then apply for a job? Because I would figure if you're trying to work in oil and gas and you were already in Fort Mac, you could probably get employment there pretty easy. So they don't have to fly you in and out all the time. That must be a massive advantage for anybody that wants to live there or is willing to live there.
There are still some fly in, fly out jobs here, which makes me a little bit crazy. It's definitely, I would say our city went into a recession. I used to say that we were recession resistant. I can't say that anymore. Shell started doing fly in, fly out in 2014, and that had a massive, massive impact in our community.
So tell me why would that change things so much?
Because they think that it was cheaper. And so if somebody could live in like cheaper places out east, for example, and live out east and then do the commute thing, then they felt that it was better, because they're not getting jobs like out here in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and Newfoundland. Like these kind of paying jobs are just not there. So
they're not even here. They were. I know many, many, many people in that time period that would fly in, fly out. They do a week in, week out, or 2 weeks in, 1 week out, or whatever it was. And it was very common that you went to a party and so worked up north and has to fly out in 2 days. Super common. Yeah.
I don't like it because it's taking money out of our community. It's taking taxes out of our city and out of our province. And I think that there's a hard impact on families too, because I see lots of people come back. Lots and lots of people come back after doing the commuting thing because it's just too hard on the family to do that.
What kept you there?
Well, once you start in real estate,
sure,
right?
Yeah,
fair. Like to start over
yeah.
somewhere else, like, yeah, no thanks. And so real estate has been up and down, and I feel like we're following the interest rates. So once they start to change and once they start to turn around, I think it's going to be even better. We're a balanced market right now.
Okay.
Funny
Where's
enough,
your inventory at?
We're balanced, right?
Okay.
So I don't even know how to answer that question for you other than we're balanced, which is good. Now,
5 months.
Condo apartments.
Anyone buying those?
They are the hottest selling piece of the market here.
All those Ontario buyers. Are there any pre-sale towers going in yet?
No. But you could get a condo for $25,000 or $30,000 or $40,000. Yes, I'm.
How big? What is that? How old's the building? How big is it? And what does it rent for?
Building. It's in the armpit of the city.
Okay.
It is. I'm sure there's a nicer way I could have said that.
What's the quality of the tenant?
Newer.
Wait. What about the homeowner, Tom? Why did you go straight to tenant, you Toronto?
Because you were going to bring that up if I didn't.
No,
because that's what people say.
No.
Oh, 25 grand is not even a deposit. It's not even a deposit.
I wasn't
in
going
Toronto.
there at all. I was going 25 grand. How do I even bitch and whine? That's a deposit or a down payment, minimum down payment on a studio apartment where I am. So why am I not just living for free outside of condo fees, which I'm sure you'll get into? But condo fees are high here now too, and condo fees are only going to get smashed by inflation. So no, Tom Storey, I was not going to do that. I was going to say why. When we have a $40,000 condo, that all these people that are like, oh, it can't be 10 times income. That is 0.75 times income. So why aren't we all there? What's going on? Tell me about condo fees, Melanie.
Okay, so condo fees are probably $800 a month for a property like that. But so here's the thing: we have a college, we have a growing and thriving college here called Keano College. Dr. Jay Note is the gentleman that is what is the word when he runs it. So what's his name?
The dean.
The dean.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so he's the dean.
The headmaster.
He's doing a great job with our college. And so our student body and has grown by like 30%. So it's up to like 2,500 students, and his goal, or 28. Anyways, his goal is to get it up to 5,000 students in the next couple of years. And I believe that he will get us there. So that means students need to live somewhere.
Is it a trades college, or is it for everything?
It's for everything, but it heavily does go on trades. Nursing, very, very strong for and well known for nursing. And brings a lot of revenue to our city. Brings a lot of revenue to our city. So those people live downtown. Then there's also people that are never going to buy here. Never, ever, or never in a situation where they can buy. So rental is always going to be needed, and there's the greatest amount of population of condos downtown. So downtown condos generally sell really quick.
So if I buy a condo for, let's just say $50,000, how big is that square footage, roughly?
It's under 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 900.
It could be a one or a two bedroom, right? It could be. It's probably a 2-bedroom with 1 bath. So there's 2 different buildings. There's one building that is concrete construction. It is older. But they've done a lot of work to turn that building around. It used to be in really bad shape, and bed bugs and cockroaches and stuff like that. But they've worked very, very hard to clean it up.
Yep. And then the rent that I could get on spending $50,000 with $800 maintenance fees, taxes, I'm guessing, are fairly low.
Yes.
The mortgage payment on $50,000 is, you don't need a mortgage.
You're not getting a mortgage.
That's right. Yeah. Right? You don't need a mortgage. So what do I rent it for?
About $1,200.
Vacancies.
So you still don't cash flow after property tax.
What's vacancy?
Okay, here's the hilarious part. If you guys are listening to this, you could not see these two just lean in as I said that.
Well, hey, it sounds like it cash flows to me.
Property tax is $400 a month. Is that what it is?
No, a year.
Okay. So maybe after you buy your Square One insurance plan, there might be some cash flow, a little bit, not a ton.
But there's no, appreciation on condos. Just that it's not
right now.
You just have to appreciate.
But even you're saying it's the hottest sector of the market. But are we talking about like, it's 25,000 to 29,000? That's the increase in price we've seen.
We're not seeing an increase in price. That's the crazy thing.
It's just activity.
With all of this, we are not seeing an increase in price, which
they're just actually more are selling.
Yeah, they're just selling. It's the hottest market. So if I look at a place right now, it's just listed for $45,000, 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom. Okay. Square foot is $855. Taxes a year are $208. That's a joke. Like, the city needs to handle that.
Crazy.
Condo fees are $635 a month.
That cash flows, Steve. You just got to buy 10 of them and get a property manager and not expect.
If you only want to make, your profit there is your negative cash flow on my side per month. So sure, let's do it, Tom. When are we going? When are we flying in?
Who are the buyers for that, Melanie? Is that an end user?
A lot of out of town people, a lot of investors.
So it is investors buying it. Interesting.
Free real estate in Fort McMurray. What are the chances? This is where I'm going to go Tom's way now. What are the chances that my tenant is going to miss rent 10 out of 12 months of the year?
I don't think so Alberta is a whole other beast, right? Like, we don't have the same laws that Ontario does, right? And so evictions happen, right? Like, that's not happening. It's not happening.
what's the appetite? Because we have a new NDP leader in Alberta who was quite popular in the populated areas. What is the appetite for the NDP type thing of bringing in rent control, which will absolutely screw your rental market in the future?
I think Albertans have to be very smart when they get to the polls. They have to be very, very smart. I do really respect Nenshi, and but Fort McMurray is never going to vote NDP. Like Liberal, even the Liberal Party is a joke in this province, right? So it's just we really have two parties in this province. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. NDP needed to do something. Now, the NDP is a very different NDP than Ontario. It is a very blue, it is a very conservative NDP. They have to be in this province.
Right.
They absolutely have to be. So we're not going to see the same things. They may try to bring in rent control, but if that's on a platform, only the renters are going to vote for that. Like anybody else is not gonna vote for that, because
you guys have a higher home ownership rate than I would guess Toronto has.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's more homeowners than renters percentage-wise than our markets.
I would say so. Yeah. For sure. Because it's affordable still here, right?
Yeah. Right.
I think you guys are going to get really screwed up by all the city dwellers coming from Vancouver and coming from Toronto moving into Calgary over the last little bit, and I think you guys might end up in trouble. I think your votes might start leaning in a little different way in the most populated areas. So,
listen, I won't be surprised by that. I think there's some validity to that, absolutely, but there's a lot of outlining places. People have seen what the NDP did before, right? They saw what they did. And I think the wild card is going to be Danielle Smith. What is Danielle going to do? You know, because she is Albertan, but it's like,
yeah,
she is Albertan, and she is not putting up with anybody's crap. So I do appreciate that. I don't know what I think of her yet still. Yeah, I don't know what I think of her yet. But we've got, like, what this country needs is a pipeline, and I'm sure there's going to be some haters on here about it. I don't care. But get with it, people.
Everybody wants a pipeline now.
I think we're all kind of
pipeline.
Yeah.
So why isn't is it the pipeline that's keeping Fort McMurray and glorious Edmonton away from being Dubai of the North? Is that what it is right now? Because I mean, it should be an area where house prices are insane, because there should be 4 million people working in Fort McMurray trying to get that crap out of the ground.
Well, okay, so what we have though is we have bitumen, right? So it's a very different product, and getting it out of the ground, like extracting it, is a different process, and it's a more costly process. I'm not an expert in this. I'm just going off the top of my head of what I do know. So getting it to market and getting it like cleaned out so that it's an actual saleable product, right? That's definitely what we need. But they're also working towards autonomous trucks here. So we are going to see some job force changes. Now those trucks are going to need maintenance, and I think the skill set is going to be different for what's needed. So we also have a guy that's running Suncor. Now Syncrude and Suncor have just merged, so there was some job loss there. That had people on edge last year a little bit, so waiting to buy. Once those announcements and once that stuff was all done, then we saw our market pick up a little bit in November last year, because the last of that was October. So we're going to see some changes, but as a CEO that gets a bonus of $36 million when our city has lost hundreds of jobs here, it's a little bit tough to take, right? It's a little bit gross. What Suncor cares about, and you talked about it, they care about money.
Mm-hmm.
They care about money. So do we need a pipeline? The answer is yes. Should we be spending $325,000 a day, or buying 325,000 units of outside oil a day?
Yeah.
No, we should not. And the money that we could be putting back into our country,
the math doesn't quite math on that, and I think we can all agree upon that, regardless of where you live in the country. Coming back to You like that, Steve? Coming
No,
back.
I was just going to say the reason we have that is because we've also got too many bitch men in a couple other spots in the province as well. So. Oh, no, bitumen is what you said. Sorry.
Oh, nice. Very nicely done.
Another pun brought to you by coffee. This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by coffee.
There we go.
Brought to you
I
by
got,
bad dad jokes.
I got iced coffee today.
We're trying to teach him to Tom so he can bring him out over the next
Yeah.
little bit.
I learned my first, but when the second baby comes, I gotta up my game on my dad jokes. All right, so Melanie, so I know you list a lot of properties. I know things don't sell overnight there.
Yeah.
What's going on? Who are buying them? Who is selling them? Where are they going? Are first-time home buyers active in your market? Because they've kind of disappeared for me and Steve. There's just not as many as there used to be because of qualifications. What is happening?
Okay, so Fort McMurray, the buyers. Let's talk about the buyers. Lots and lots of first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
But let's figure that out. Like when the average price, like when it's affordable, right? So it's affordable. So they need $30,000 to $40,000 to get into the market, and they can get into a market with a decent home. So what we're seeing with our market is we haven't seen the craziness that the rest of the country saw, even when it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like we are not going, or it's going to be very, very rare to see unconditional offers coming in on single family homes. We just don't have that clientele. They're putting 5% down. They're putting 10% down. It's rare that we're seeing those higher numbers. So if I think about some of the last few people that I've sold, 3 retiring.
Okay.
That's some of the stuff that I am seeing. Retiring. I'm also seeing they've moved, like they've just moved for work and they're in a different city. Or who else are my sellers? Bank repos are some of my markets.
We talked about that last time you were on. What percentage of your business is still the bank repos?
I'd say last year was still pretty high. This year seems like it might come down a little bit. I don't seem to have had quite as many, but it's going to be interesting because this is going to be the summer of the interest rates, right? If people, thank God my my mortgage is up next year, 1.84% for my mortgage.
Are you going to aggressively try to pay it down before it comes up? Like make a massive lump sum or something so that when it comes up at a higher rate?
Yeah. If I'm able to, I would really like to, but like I still owe what it's worth. It sucks. There's a repo down the street from me that is like listed for $435. It has a garage. I don't have a garage. I do have a renovated main floor. My kitchen's been redone. My flooring's been redone. It's been painted. I know I'm trying to mimic that. My house is worth so much more money than my neighbors. But it's not selling, and I haven't been in it yet, and I don't understand why, but I'm crying. So there's some repos that are going to be a good deal. There are others where they're holding strong and stubborn on price, and they'll sit until they sell.
That at 435 is relatively comparable to your house.
Yes.
What did you pay for your house?
For tenant, landlord, or homeowner insurance policies, go to squareone.ca/The Tom Storey Show. Use the link in the description. Save $20 when you start your free quote right now.
$738,000 in 2011. So I have a 2-story house, almost 1,600 square foot, 2-story house. I do not have a garage. I do have a 2-bedroom legal suite in it. I will never buy I don't want to live in a house again without an attached garage. That is the one lesson. So the goal is
minus 45. That must suck.
Yeah, the goal is to move next year or the year after. That is the goal.
And you're just going to take the loss?
So we talked about that before. It's not a loss until you sell. And I needed to live somewhere. What would my rent have cost me? I've had renters in my basement paying like good rent. I was renting the entire house at one point and I was killing it at like, it was crazy. I was probably making $2,000 profit a month from the house for a long time. So I choose not to look at it as that massive loss. I just can't. I'd drive myself crazy if I did.
But the the mortgage amount is higher than the current market value of the house today?
I'd say it's about even, right?
Okay.
I'd
All
say
right.
it's about
Okay.
even. Yeah. So will there be costs to sell? If I chose to sell it right now, if I had to sell it, I'd be opening up my wallet to sell. Yes. And there's still lots and lots and lots of people that are there. I'm hoping at some point that there's going to be a tipping point where that starts to change for the people like myself that have owned for so long.
Right.
And, prices hold. And I feel like we've hit the bottom of the market already. So I'm just paying as much as I can. The other thing to remember is that people got to take 2 times off their mortgages here in Fort McMurray. Everyone for COVID, and then during the evacuation, people could take 6 months off their mortgage. So some people might be
and did people take advantage of that?
Absolutely. Some people had to, and some people just chose to because they could.
And maybe shouldn't have if they didn't have to, right? Because it just kind of, you kick it down the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe we can reflect on this. Reflect, wrong word again, Tom. Maybe we can think about this for the future here, because we are going to have people in my market and Tom's market that bought at the peak of 2022 that are going to come up for mortgage renewals in the next year or 2 years. And then there's going to be folks that either want to or need to sell within that period of time. So if you pictured yourself, and I'm sure you have clients in the similar situations to you, how does that conversation go? What do they do? Do they just throw their hands up at one point in time and say, I'm leaving town, I don't care how big the loss is, even if it sounds like 45%? Like, are they just out? How does that go down? Is it just, are they beat up over 10 years of losing money, so now they've come to terms with it?
Are you asking me the mindset of a seller? Is that's the question? And the conversation is always, what do you owe? What's your payout penalty? If you're selling for a loss, do you have money to cover a shortfall? You want to sell? Okay, great. You can't cover the shortfall. Let's call Sagan, right? Let's call Sagan and see what they could do. So Sagan has a really great homeowners program that if people qualify for it, they will help you sell the home.
We actually just had one of their top people on the podcast talking about this not that long ago. So that's interesting that you brought it up, because that now it's clear that people are actually taking advantage of these programs that the mortgage insurers have.
Yeah. CMHC doesn't have one. I don't believe Canada Guarantee. I think Sagan is the only one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you ask them why they changed their name? Like, why a name change?
It's actually Sagan. But it was a whole thing. Genworth sold off their thing, and the Gen at the end of Sagan was to go back to their past. And what'd she say, Steve? Kiki said that, and Sage meant something. It was some like,
Sage is, I don't know, whatever Sage means. And then the Gen is coming off of Genworth, and then really it's because the property sold, or the asset sold from one asset manager to another, from GE to Brookfield. So they were like, we got to change the name because it's ours now. So that's why they do it. But
it is confusing. But that's interesting to hear you bring that up. And we didn't have that conversation beforehand at all, that people actually calling them. And because that's what we were talking. We had Kiki from Sagan on the podcast, and we were like, what do people do? Some people don't even know who their mortgage default insurance is with. They have no clue, right? They'd have to find out through the lender. So now you're actively talking with sellers saying, hey, make that call, find out what your options are.
Yeah.
Because, this, but Melanie, I've told you this a million times. I'm like, if you were selling real estate in Toronto, you'd be crushing all of us, because all you've done for 10 years is had difficult conversations with people. Like, you know how to work through the mud, basically, right? Like, where we've been in bad markets, but nothing like you've experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that you don't go through it. But I think that there's going to be some adjustments from the height of the market and people selling, people not being able to sell. It's going to be tough to have some of those conversations. Why? The very first question is, why are you selling?
Mm-hmm.
Why now? What changed? And then
what are they saying?
Well, for some people, it's retirement. Some people is they just can't handle it anymore. But I've also had conversations where people are giving the keys back to the bank. I've had lots of those conversations.
So what does that look like? So you phone Are you phoning Sagen or is the client phoning Sagen?
The client has to.
Okay, so they're phoning and saying, what are my options?
Yeah.
And then they come back to you with, hey, this is what Sagen told me. I can either default at this price or I can, like, what does that look like?
Well, it looks like you got to work with they've got a checklist of things for you as the agent that you'll need to make some changes on how you structure things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other piece of that is like working with the client, and then you have to give a report to them. You have to give them a market analysis. They might even need to they generally need to get an appraisal done as well, a physical appraisal.
So what's the future like for Fort McMurray? What's the next 10, 15 years like?
Let's look at the next 5.
Okay.
There's people that have been waiting to buy that are sick and tired of renting.
Mm.
And it's still, even with the interest rates where they are, well, they've also calmed down, right? Because the bond yields have been good. So the fixed rates are reasonable. The fixed are decent prices, right?
Yeah.
So we will see people buy, people that have been waiting to buy. There's still going to be people retiring over the next few years as well. That's always going to be happening, right?
Yeah.
And as things change at site, the autonomous trucks, like there's always going to be someone that wants to save more money, right?
Yeah.
That wants to save more money. So we're going to see we are an oil town, right? So much relies on what happens with site. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of that. So do I think prices are going to go up like crazy? No, I don't. I think we're going to hold strong. I think we're going to balance. The good stuff is going to sell. The good stuff gets picked off in the first 2 weeks. If you're not priced right, it's not going to sell. And that is literally my conversation with everyone. If you are not priced right, there will be no showings.
Yep.
And there will be no offers.
Steve, you hearing this? You writing down this advice for your current
It's my jam
situation?
right now.
Yeah.
That being said, I have to present multiple offers after this today, so that's interesting.
Oh, that's exciting.
But it is exciting. Let's play this little game because you mentioned interest rates and all that stuff. So a couple weeks ago now, the inflation came in a little hotter. That caused the bond yield to go back up a little bit. Next announcement is a couple of weeks, 24th, I think, of July. Do we want to play the game? Do we want to take a guess? Melanie, what do you think's happening? Tom, are we getting another quarter point? What are we doing?
My gut says no, they'll hold and then cut again in September, because September's numbers are not going to look great in a good thing for potential rate cuts. But I did say from the very beginning, I said June, July, December were my 3 rate cut guesses from beginning of the year. So I'm going to stick to what I said.
I listen to Benjamin Tal from CIBC a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He is like, for us, it's like, of course, right? But there was actually an article in Globe and Mail. I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but like in Globe and Mail, where he's the most accurate economist. He is saying June, July, and then September, like he figures that by the spring, that'll be down to 3%. Inflation for June went up a smidge. So, I think they're going to be cautious. I want to say, like, truly, I want to say it's going to come down again. But I think that it's going to be a last minute decision because but they'll have 2 interest rates, right? So by July 16th. So that inflation number comes out on the 3rd Tuesday of every single month. If it goes up again, there's no way. If it goes down again, I think they're holding no matter what for July. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think it's going to go down in September.
When you're speaking with sellers that have properties on the market that are not selling, the general theme that me and Steve are seeing is they say like, oh, well, we've heard interest rates are coming down. Melanie, have you helped anybody buy a property with a variable rate mortgage in the last 12 months?
No.
Right. So there's still that gap between what we know, what the audience of this show knows, what people that are interested in real estate knows, and then the general mindset of, oh, I heard rates are coming down, so maybe if we wait a little bit, we'll get a better price.
Here's the thing. I think if buyers are smart right now, you take a shorter term mortgage, You get the house because real estate, I think it's on sale right now. I think Fort McMurray is going to have a stronger fall market than the spring market. And then if those rates go down I think that they're going to eventually get closer to 4 by the end of the year. And then in the new year, it dips below 4. I think it's going to be nuts here in the spring.
Where do you think this all levels out, though? Like, Steve, I'll go to you on this. When the dust settles, right, and the Bank of Canada has got the overnight rate to, maybe it does go to 3%. Who knows, right? Maybe it goes lower. When the dust settles and we've had some time to calm and kind of look back, you think the variable rate ends up in the mid 4s and the fixed rates maybe 3.994? Do you think that's where we kind of end here?
Say that again? Why would they be? You think the variable are going to end up higher or lower?
I think
variable is going to always end up lower.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so fixed rate
when the dust does settle, it will go back.
Well, by the way, variable's not always lower, obviously. In the last,
but you said when the dust settles, Tom.
Okay,
so
fine.
Right now there's a lot of dust. When it settles,
okay, so variables at
we're going to go back to normal.
Mid to high 3s, and the fixed is at 4,
7, 9, and
4.25 or something.
Fixed rate 4.42. Just to be like, yeah, that's I think the gap you're going to see.
Once all the mortgage renewals are taken care of from these,
this comes
2% rate that Melanie has.
This comes out on Sunday, July 14th, and then you're saying that inflation announcements, you said third Tuesday, so that's the 16th. So then within a week, they're going to make, I actually agree with you, within a week, they're going to make that decision. They have no idea what they're going to do right now. And I am, from what's going on, and this is just from my market, just from what I'm seeing in the market, nothing to do with any other economic stuff. These rates, I think, are going to come down faster than I had previously thought. I said 2 all year long. I can see 3, and I can see us being at 4% by the end of the year now, because I think you're going to see some pretty gnarly numbers coming out over the next little bit. I think the economy is going to get bad quick. This episode is also brought to you by Happiness and Positivity. But I do think we're going to see something where the downside is going to come quicker. And then I was actually having this conversation with Tom because I was offline, and Tom's like, just remember, everything's going to happen faster than we think. And that is proving to be true. Like the market seems to be dipping faster than we think, and then the market seems to recover faster than we think each and every time. But I think for the rest of the year in our market, it's not going to be a pretty thing.
Real estate agents across Ontario are using TRESA video to increase trust and transparency with their clients. And now for a limited time, you can get your own custom branded video totally for free. It's simple, and here's how it works. Simply refer your broker of record to tresavideo.ca, and when they purchase the broker version for your entire office, tell them to enter the promo code SUMMER at checkout. That's right. Refer tresavideo.ca to your broker of record and get your own custom branded individual or team video totally for free. Refer TRESA Video to your broker of record, and they will love you for helping them provide value to their agents. Your coworkers will also love you because now they'll get use of TRESA Video for their business, and you will love receiving your very own custom branded TRESA Video totally for free. So tell the powers that be at your office to go to tresavideo.ca and enter the promo code SUMMER at checkout. This offer is valid once per brokerage purchase and for a limited time.
I think I'm going to have the opposite of you, and I think we're going to be balanced. I think that we're going to have a stronger fall market, or just as strong fall market as spring market this year. Already I'm seeing the numbers this year is going to be better than last year. It's not going to be as good as 2022.
Really?
But when those numbers start to come down, 2022 I believe it's going to beat 2025 is going to beat 2022. Now,
transaction numbers or sale price numbers? Transaction.
Yeah, transaction numbers. Yeah. Sale price numbers, I'm telling you, in Fort McMurray, I don't think it's going up like crazy. Now, the other thing that I've been following is, where are the numbers, right? What is selling? What price points are actually selling? Mm-hmm. And so what's selling in Fort McMurray is that we have 7 houses, the busiest part of the city, which is north of the bridge here. 7 homes over 800,000 have already sold so far this year. Last year, there was only 7 that sold in the entire year, over 7. So once the higher end stuff starts to move here, then of course the average price is going to go up. It's not going up because prices are going up. It's going up because the higher end prices are selling here. So if you're make sure you pay attention to that and make sure that you report on that so that people can see the difference. Is the average price coming down because prices are actually coming down, or are they coming down because the higher end stuff is not selling?
Did anything sell over $1 million this year?
2 properties over $1 million.
What are they? Like, what type of property is that?
Beautiful. Like, we don't have a huge luxury market here, right? Like, we just don't have a lot of homes like that. So 4 bedroom, like just over the top, big home, you know, probably closer to 3,000 square foot home. You know, we don't have 5, 6, 7,000 square foot homes here. Like, we just, or there might be, they're few and far between if we do have them.
They don't, or they don't sell.
Yeah, they're not. No one's, I would never buy that a house that expensive ever.
Yeah.
No way. Yeah.
All right. I wanted to wrap this up and take in a slightly different direction because I feel like we've done our service, Steve, to the audience on the real estate talk. Melanie, you just like, let's talk about this entrepreneur, business person. My whole thought with everything we do with this podcast, with the YouTube videos, with everything is like, I think I'm relatively good at what I do. I want people to know. I want to find avenues to show those people that I know what I'm talking about, right? Like in a very simple form. But you were doing video stuff long before me and Steve were. So just like, what are you up to these days? And if there's anyone else, doesn't have to be in real estate, but like you own a business. Yeah. What do you do to get people to know that you exist and that they should do business with you?
Well, I'm just changing over companies to the Listings Lab, and I'm going to start doing a lot more niche marketing and personalized. So psychological marketing towards my niche, so my niche is upsizers. So someone, you know, and I kind of feel like I'm in that myself, going through it as I think about, like, I'm getting kittens and 4 sleeps. And so I'm looking at my house, right? And I'm thinking, like, with my last 2 cats, there's a lot of times that I didn't take pictures because my house was so messy. And I had too much stuff everywhere. And I stopped, like, what are people doing? You know, and I think post about that and what people are going through and more personalized stuff. So I think you're going to see in my feeds, you're going to see a lot. You're not going to see just listed. You're not going to see just sold. You're going to see content that makes a difference. You're going to learn a little more about me. And I think being relatable, I think, is going to be the most important way to market myself.
Even if you're being more vulnerable about things that are going on and not just showing the wins. So that's kind of the mindset behind it, right?
Yeah, right. I think I'm going to tell you some of my most noted, and I posted this by accident. So I got in 2017, I'll talk about it. In 2017, I got fired and I got rehired, you know, and it was what was needed to happen. I needed to take care of myself. We've talked about this before too, the importance of taking care of doesn't matter what your job is, right? And so, you know, sharing that with people, I don't know how I'm going to share that yet. I don't know if I need to share it, but like being in a place that I'm like, okay, I can share this because this is a win now.
Yeah.
And sharing the wins aren't necessarily, oh, look at me, I got whatever award. You're not going to see that in my feed. What you're going to see in my feed is I was really struggling with my mental game golfing, and I figured out how to conquer that. And now I can play in a tournament and women don't hate me, you know? So, you know, that's going to be the kind of content, right? It's just way more personal. That's what people want. They want to know who you are. They are buying into you, right? They're buying into your system. They're buying into the way that you do things and who you are as a human. I think showing that is going to be way more valuable to people.
Maybe in a way, without us realizing it, we kind of are doing that with this show and the YouTube stuff, where what I love so much about this show, Steve, is we literally don't edit this. Like, whatever we say, it makes it on to the final recording. That very rarely have we ever removed anything. It's only been because the guest has said to us, like, yeah, you should probably cut that little piece I said there. But that's happened like 2 times.
Slur
yeah, that's happened like very few times. And sometimes we're like, oh, we have to cut that piece. But being honest about what's going on. And I talked about a few episodes ago, like what happened because I lost on a listing, and here's what I think happened. And
yeah,
maybe that makes a difference. And it has been neat to see people now reach out to us and say, like, I listen to the show every Sunday. It's like, wow, can't believe anybody listens, let alone thousands of people. So it's been neat to see. All right. So a few minutes left here. You know, you've obviously, living where you live, gone through tough times, good times, personal, tough times, good times, things like that. Seems like, you know, things are going really good for you right now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
There's people listening that are going through bad times. People are going through bad times right now. What do you tell them?
If people are going through bad times right now, remember that I heard this quip of Tom Hanks, this too shall pass.
Yeah, so everything is temporary.
Everything is temporary, right? Like everything is temporary. Find a way, like truly, I say this all the time, get a good therapist. You know, like when you deal with the war at home, meaning inside your own head, deal with your own demons, like it is worth all of the work. And I truly do think that every person's true success comes when you deal with the war at home. I've had some major breakthroughs this year, and I am the happiest that I feel like I have ever been. And I am peaceful.
Is it a change of mindset or thinking? Is that the key to unlock the next steps that you have to take? Is it just getting out more, doing more personal things, golfing more? Like what sets it off in the right motion?
No, it is learning to understand my emotions.
Okay.
So for example, so I wish I knew the exact name of the type of therapy that it is, but basically, let's say I get upset about something, and whatever that emotion is, I was like, okay, why is this triggering me? All right. It's not this actual person. What is this event? What is this reminding me of? And then, you know, if it's a childhood event that well, listen, we're going deep here, and I appreciate the opportunity to do this because I think the gift and the realness of being able to talk about this is like so important. And so figuring out, like, we all have an inner child, and I'm going to go here with you guys. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We all have an inner child. And I will say the work that I have done, because I take time to figure out when she's upset about something, and she's not running the show anymore, but I feel like I'm at a stage now, my inner child trusts me. So I'm reacting less. I feel more in alignment with myself and my parts and my wounds, or the stuff in me that gets triggered. Listen, I still get triggered by stuff. There's still going to be growth, and I'll probably come back around to some stuff that I've already worked on because I'll be at a different place and a different level. Mm-hmm. The best thing I have ever done I'm going to tell you this, the best thing that ever happened to me was getting fired in 2017 because I knew I was not taking care of myself. And I made myself a promise that would never happen to me again. Never. Never, never, never. And inside of healing that within myself, and listen, it's been some hard friggin' work, but it has been worth it. And I know more success is going to come to me because I've worked so hard and healed so much. So maybe it's not, oh, do I need to door knock more? No, maybe you need to just deal with yourself and figuring out what are you attracting right now, because life is happening for you, not to you. And you are where you are because of the choices that you've made or you haven't made. So
Steve decided his outlet is to wrestle other grown men that are sweaty. That's been what he's been up to.
I thought you were going to say I was attracting listings because they got plenty of those these days. No, I'm using an outlet for sure. I just wish my outlet didn't separate my shoulder.
But if you're doing something and it's just to avoid the emotions, there's only one way through it. It's through it. It's not to avoid it, right? Like at some point in time, you got to deal with your shit.
Are you still doing your podcast?
No, I've paused
it. I didn't mean to call you out, but I'm saying, like, if people are interested in more of this conversation, I know you have more of this that exists.
Well, there is some of it in Shift Disturber, and thank you for the reminder to get back to it, because it is something that I've definitely missed doing. Yeah. Something. And you're also reminding me, I think people need to hear not just, oh, success. It's like,
Right.
okay, like let's have some real conversations, because I'm not good with surface stuff. So yeah.
Right. Well, me and Steve are ready to buy 15 condos in Fort McMurray. I will call you after this to set up the viewings, and I want to see the spreadsheets and the numbers. That's it. That was fun. Melanie, thank you so much. We always love having you on. Second time guest, which is awesome. You came at the beginning of the show. Let's call this just the middle of the show, and we'll have you back on one day when we finally shut this down, but that will probably never happen. Steve, this is actually, to be honest, this is my therapy session every week. It's with Steve. I think I need my money back. But
we probably should have taken that BetterHelp ad, Tom, right now.
Did you not respond to them? We'll talk about that later.
Some advertisers I appreciate. Others,
Melanie, people, there's somebody listening to this that is moving to Fort McMurray, has friends or family in Fort McMurray. I would say to them, comment below, let Melanie know you're listening. And then if they want to reach out to you, how do they reach out to you?
Best way, if you look Melanie up and you forget my last name, it's Galea, Galea. I'm the only Melanie realtor in Fort McMurray, and I'll pop right up.
Okay. Also, warning to anyone else thinking of getting their real estate license in Fort McMurray.
Name Melanie.
Melanie, just don't even try. Not worth it.
It's not a saturated market, though, so maybe you have a chance. It's only 50% market share. So
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Have an amazing week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, hold on.